Hi, Jerry Ludlow here. I'm going to be showing you how I paint watercolour and ink, or pen and wash as it was called in the past. This is Southwold Harbour with its boat sheds and boats being repaired on the shore, and there's lots of paraphernalia that goes with these small boats everywhere. The composition is straightforward. All the boats and sheds are connected and there's a lovely reflections mirroring them. I think I'll make the sheds a little bit brighter than they are rather than all black, and I'll change the sky. It's looking a bit plain, so I'll make that slightly different. Now I'm going to start with the drawing. Doing the horizon line first. The paper I'm using is Saunders Waterford 140 pounds rough, and I'm using a 4B pencil to do the initial drawing. And what I tend to do with these ink drawings is I'll pencil it in first and then go over it afterwards with the ink, and then when the ink's dry I'll rub out the pencil marks. So if I go slightly wrong with the pencil, it doesn't matter, as long as the ink's correct, because I'm going to rub it out after anyway. Just doing these sheds at the back, and then there's a few boats there on these, sometimes they're on oil drums or bits of wood, and they're just there waiting to be repaired, or they've been repaired and waiting to get put back on the water. Then there's these delightful sheds that's used for storage and repairs and things. They're all different shapes and sizes. Makes for a very good ready-made composition. You don't really need to alter too much at all. There's a slightly larger boat on the right hand side. Looks like maybe it's a fishing boat or something like that. I think they bring them ashore to clean the underneath when they get full of barnacles and things like that, things growing on them. It's always quite noisy with things going on, angle grinders and drills and people scraping and things. And there's another boat on the left facing the other way. And then there's this lovely telegraph pole on the left hand side, and I've added another one and taken it across the page. So I quite like that to be at the top of the composition, and it connects it all. And at the front there's this large rowing boat, and it is a large one as well. It's twice the size of a normal rowing boat. There's a boat that's on top of something. Can't quite make out what it is, but I'm not going to put too many things underneath it. I'll just do that when it comes to the painting. You could do this straight in ink, but I prefer to do it this way. It gives me the option of, when I make mistakes, or even changing things. I may not keep all the sheds exactly as they are. Not so many windows on these sheds, there's just doors on them. I think they don't have windows on for security, I think. Then there's these reflections. I'm not going to make too much of them, because a lot of this is going to be covered in the paint, and I'll just be doing some abstract designs on the water to try and reflect what's above. I'm going to be doing the light coming from the left, so that my shadows will be going to the right. Nice big reflection on the left hand side there where that boat is. And then there's these uprights that are very nice. Lots of nice shapes, all connected. A slightly wavy line to the reflections, where there'd be a little bit of movement in the water, because it is tidal here, so the water's always moving slightly. Now I'm going to start with the ink. I'm using waterproof ink in a bottle, and here I'm using a sharpened matchstick that I put into a stick, a cane stick. This is just one of the cane sticks from my garden. It can be used to good effect and gives a really nice line. And you see, as it goes across the paper, you get a really nice broken line with it. You'd have to be careful when you're dipping the point into the ink, that you lose some of the ink, wipe it back into the bottle. Otherwise you can end up putting it onto the paper and get a large blob, which is a bit difficult to disguise. I've ruined many a painting by having a great big blob go in the centre that I can't really do anything with. Now really I'm just following my lines that I've done previously in pencil. I work from left to right, top to bottom, to try and keep my hand out of the way of the wet ink. I'm putting in some of the timbers of the boat, and I'm going to go darker on the side that is in shadow. Just trying to keep my hand out of the way of the wet ink. This is just the shed going out the side of the painting. Just a suggestion of timbers. Nice broken lines going in. And then doing these shapes of things in front of the sheds. Not quite sure what some of them are, so I'm just kind of painting what I see, or the shapes that I see, not always knowing what they are. Making these upright posts nice and dark, plenty of ink on them. When you use these matchsticks that I use, I use the longer ones, and I do practice before I go into my painting with it on an old piece of paper, just to make sure the point's been cut okay, because I cut it with a utility knife. It's a bit like when you whittle wood and you cut it with a knife. There's that boat that's raised up in the air. Can't really see probably what it's on, so I'll just paint some bits and pieces and colours and things underneath it. And this is the large rowing boat. That part will be in shadow. I do sometimes wipe the tip on a piece of tissue, and if too much builds up. Constantly replenishing the ink. And this is a dark area. I'm putting in ink, reflection of the boat above it and that shed. Just making sure that my reflections are match what's up above. I do like these long posts. I think they're used for tying the boats to the bank. Starting to do these sheds again. I've missed a few out. It's not important. There's some timber on the shore. Putting some of the darks in with the ink before I do it with the watercolour later on. And there's this path leading back to the sheds at the right hand side. Not sure about that shed I've put in at the back there. I may not bother putting that in. It looks a bit of an odd shape. And plus the fact I like leave that nice gap there between the two, which will look good with the reflections when I come to do it. And finally the fishing boat on the right. If you're going to have a go yourself at this, it's quite a forgiving way of painting because you can rub out your pencil drawing and change it lots of times until you're happy with it, and then going over with the ink. Obviously with the ink you have to be a bit more careful. You only get one go with that. But practice on old bits of paper first of all before you try your first painting with the ink, just to get used to the materials. Now, I'm not putting it on that thick actually, so it shouldn't take too long for it to dry, but you do have to leave it for a while. Make sure it's perfectly dry before you go over it with the putty eraser to remove the pencil lines, because if it's not dry it will smudge and ruin the painting, and I've done that a few times myself. when it comes to the painting side of things, doing this kind of thing beforehand with the ink does actually make it easier to paint than just going straight in with watercolour. And then I'm putting in finally some lines in the water. Decided that there was a part of that shed that I hadn't done the roof showing slightly. That's the ink work done. I've just changed the camera angle so you can see it better. This has been left for quite a while. I went and had a cup of tea and came back quite a bit later, so this is very dry, and I'm quite confident that nothing's going to smudge. Using a nice new white putty rubber. And that's it. Ready for the watercolour to go on. Here's my palette, and these are the colours that I use, starting from the bottom left: sepia, Payne's grey, French ultramarine, cobalt blue, cerulean blue, cobalt turquoise, neutral tint, and light red on the left hand side. On the top, raw umber, burnt sienna, raw sienna, quinacridone gold, hooker's green, and then on the right hand side, sap green, cadmium yellow, alizarin crimson, opera rose, cadmium red, jaune brilliant, and lavender. And I also use white gouache and white paint sometimes as well. Here's the ink drawing that I'm going to be working on, and as you can see, it is a lot easier to work with this than starting off with pencil marks and watercolour. I'm going to be doing a bit of a menacing sky here. I think it's going to be with Payne's grey and some alizarin crimson. And I've got some white on the palette as well. Very watery alizarin crimson. And then adding some blue to that. That's with two medium mop brushes, and then with a smallish round brush and a tiny bit of white with sepia, just to send the white a little bit off colour and into the sky, and top part with the alizarin crimson mix. and then the watery mix, just to take the edges off as we come down with the sky. And the Payne's grey mixture mixed with the alizarin crimson mix. Adding water to this as we come down, so I can make it lighter when you get to the tops of the huts. Still able to work on the top part there because it's still quite wet. And I'm going to just add some more paint for painting the top part of the sky again. Make it nice and dark. It won't be this colour when it dries, it'll be quite a bit lighter. By going in so dark at the start, it saves you having to paint the sky again. Always look better when you can do the sky just in one wash. Doesn't matter about going onto the tape. And with this same mixture, I'm going to be painting the water. And with the water, it's the opposite, keeping it light at the top and getting darker as it comes towards you. Making the mix a little bit stronger and brushing it in right in the foreground. This will look different when it dries. Going to clean the palette as I don't need this colour anymore. And I've dried the first wash off. Now I'm going to start working on these huts. Using the same mixture for a few parts. This is light red. And the face of the second hut on the left, I'm going to be using raw umber and some water as I bring it down. Doesn't really matter where you start with these kind of paintings. I just go around the painting just as I see it at that moment, and I'll try to use the same colour in different areas if I can. Just varying the colour on these huts rather than making them look like they've been just coloured in. In the original photograph, they're all black, but I used artistic license and have changed it. I think they'll look better with a bit of colour. They're all quite weathered. Just varying it a little bit on the face of each hut. Sometimes I'll just use whatever's on the palette to add to the colour that I start with. Just blotting out a bit of the colour on that roof. Make it look like it's either weathered or got some shadows on it or something. Then there's this path on the left hand side, just putting in. Nice and easy to work with the paint this way, as you've got your lines there for you to guide you. I'm going to be putting the light from the left hand side, so I'll be putting my shadows to the right. And I'll be going over these huts again just to bring the colour out a bit more, so stand out a bit more against the sky and the water. Using a medium round. This is synthetic and has a nice point and quite a lot of spring to it. And this is a boat that's raised up, being repaired, or might have been repaired. Just putting in the shadow side. Quite a nice shape to this collection of huts. No two are the same. Different heights and widths. Now working on this white boat that's at the front. It's quite a large one. And then using some of the darks, Payne's grey, sepia, put the line in where the boat meets the water. Quite a lot of boating paraphernalia on the side of the water, which I'm really just going to put down to being some marks. A nice red boat. Looks like a fishing boat, I think, up on the ramps for repair, or maybe being cleaned. Putting some dark shapes there under the boat that's on the ramps there. There's all sorts of things there, tarpaulins, bits of wood. Now going in with some lavender as my colour for some of the shadows. Starting to work on this dockside planking, wood and things like that. Looking nice and dark against the light. This is quite a dark mixture with some blues in there, French ultramarine, cobalt blue. Quite a lot of French ultramarine. And just a little bit of Payne's grey. Going to get some nice dark reflections in here off of these huts. Putting a few lines in from the movement in the water. Now I've dried this all off. I'm going to start putting a second wash on some of these huts at the back. They're looking a bit bland. This is white gouache. Doing the writing on the boat and just put a little bit of sparkle here and there. Lining up that boat. Looks quite effective with the white, but it is something that you have to be mindful of not putting too much on. This is raw umber and bringing it down with some water, the same as when I painted the hut in the first place. Just needed a bit more depth of colour to help with the contrast. Decided to make this tall, skinny hut a bit more of a green colour. I think it looks quite nice in amongst those browns. Just putting in some shadows here now. Using the blue mixture that was on the palette. Needs to be a little bit darker, the start of these reflections on the riverbank. Now taking off the masking tape carefully to reveal that nice white edge on the watercolour paper. This is the finished painting. I hope that I've inspired you to have a go at painting a watercolour with ink. Now if you've got any questions, you can always contact me via my website and I'll be happy to help you. Thanks for watching.